welcome to Rooted But Real. We hope that this episode is going to just blow your mind today. I believe what we're talking about today is going to be so foundational for you, so rooted but real. Me and my husband, we love having these conversations during pillow talk and bedtime. But I also think it's so crucial right now in this day and age and this time to have those real conversations that allow you to be rooted, but also be real in truth and honesty, and not be afraid to challenge one another and sharpen one another. I feel like our marriage is based off of that. It's about divine timing and divine alignment as well. So we hope that this not also just blesses you, but also this is something that it can be shared and talked amongst with your friends too.
Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thanks for locking in today. We are Rooted but Real. This is a conversation where we're going to be talking about all things that indulge in just parenthood, relationships, life advice, probably even marriage at points in times, because we are just walking through all the things that God has for us in this season, but also all the things that we're understanding. I believe that, and I tell my husband this every day, that it feels like I'm living the first day of my life. There are new things that I guess we are learning and that are transpiring. And I feel like this is the season and time where a lot of us are locking into things that are actually going to help us, build us, grow us, our mindset, sharpen us.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing like sharpening iron, because at the end of the day, for us, we don't want to just be rooted biblically, but we want to have those real conversations, things that I wish we would have heard growing up, so we could understand life and understand through God's perspective in his eyes. And I believe this isn't just what we're doing this season, but I believe that God always gives us gifts and we have to give out of those gifts. And so this is Rooted But Real, and we're also going to just be completely real with y'all. We don't know what we doing, but we gonna have fun together, and we're gonna really just deep dive.
Yeah. We're going to build together. We're going to explore together. We're going to just have those conversations. And I think you said something really cool there. It's all of us have a responsibility to have these conversations. And I think a lot of times we don't, for whatever reasons, or we don't have them as much as we should. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to kind of get the ball rolling on that and to hear you guys' perspective on a lot of these topics and what you think. So make sure to comment, let us know when we're tripping, let us know when we're on. Let me know when I'm right, or let Trinity know when she's right. Mm-hmm. But I think either way, there will be something here for everybody to take away from. And that's what I'm most excited about. So yeah, let's jump in.
Well, before we jump in, I do want to say thank you to my husband, what I was saying before we got cut off. Just thank you for listening to everything that I feel like I just gibberish about, like I just talk. Thank you for understanding the seasons that I go through. Thank you for seeing me through every season, the good and the bad and the ugly and the great. But thank you for really just believing in me as a dreamer and a visionary, but also God's daughter. I believe that Rooted But Real came literally in the middle of the night, but I told Trey the very next day, and he was like, then let's do it. And just having your support, having your trust, even when I was uncertain. One thing about my husband, and one thing he knows, is I really don't like being on camera front and center, but I really think in this season God is using just a mustard seed. And I believe that this will not only just help us in our communication and our growth, but I believe that it's going to help so many people, because Jesus did. He left the 99 for the one. So even if this just impacts one person, then I believe that I will hear God say, well done, my good and faithful servant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I believe in you. I believe in what God's giving you. And I know you hear from him. And my job as a husband is to steward you well, is to lead you well. And a lot of the times we think that means by strength and by force
Right.
and by with a certain angst.
Right.
But a lot of times it can look like serving. Jesus led by servanthood. And so it's been the greatest joy to serve you and to serve our kids and to pour back into your visions and your life. You spent so much time putting
Lord.
what you want on the sidelines for us, for our family, for me. And so it's the bare minimum that I could do. It is this. And I believe when God put us together, He had things like this in mind. Whether it's on a camera going out or whether it's upstairs in our living room. I believe He's given us and all of us really a story to tell. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So
Right.
it's an honor to share. It's an honor to support you. It's an honor to love you this way. So
Thank you. Now that we got the mushy out the way,
well,
let's just talk about what does it look like to live out a relationship with God for you today? And how different does it look today than it looked growing up?
well, a lot. I think everybody has that moment or that season where you kind of go from. I was raised in church. I was raised in like having to go to church 4 days a week, 5 days a week, and so shout out to all the PKs. But it was much more of a mandate when I was growing up, and we weren't really asking a lot of questions. We were, but it wasn't really like always biblical answers. Sometimes when you grow up in denominations and things like that, like there's just traditional things that you experience. And so for me, that's kind of what it was. It was a tradition I was bought into and I was used to. I didn't know, which is there's a lot of cultural
Right.
foundation with that as well. So it was different, but it was good. And I watched my grandfather lead and pray and be a light to his community. A community where I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so a community in Pittsburgh where it was very rough. You wouldn't, you didn't go out down there, after 4 p.m. Like it was very rough, but he was a beacon and he loved on people. And I watched him take people that were written off, that nobody cared about, and he loved on them. He gave back for back to school bashes, and he was just very present in that community. And so I really think out of everything, I did learn a love for people. Sometimes there's a saying that says, spread the gospel or preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. And all that means is like you can preach the gospel with your actions. And I think he did both. He was a dynamic speaker, a dynamic preacher, but he was also, you can see how he lived his life and you can see how devoted and how charismatic and zealous he was for God as well. So I think I got a lot of that. But growing up, you're kids, like you still experience everything that kids experience. And so I think for me, I didn't really, really start walking with God until college when I had a choice to go to church or not.
Right.
Versus like my mom is expecting me to be at church or I play at church, so I knew I had to be there. It was like, no, I get to choose. And when you're PK, a lot of times you grow up in a church, like you're given a church. You don't get to pick.
Right.
And so it was the first time where I had to know what type of leadership I wanted to be under. Who am I going to follow? What type of ministry do I support? or am I feeling called to?
Mm-hmm.
So that was all new. And so my walk now looks a lot different than it did back then, just because you're just at, 19, 18, 19, 20 years old. You're just getting your footing. And so it looks a lot different now. I think now I used to just be on this thing, and this is probably the cultural side of me of like, hey, like I want to be used by God. Like
Yeah.
God can use me because I was a musician, so I was used to being used.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very like
That's the
okay
word.
with
Used to
being
being
used.
used.
And I think for me, I'm just in a season where I just want to be known by God. God, I just want you to know me. Like you can use me all you want to, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to be in a room or helping all these people or being a part of this magnificent move of God, and I never receive them from me.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like, God, I want you to know me more than I want you to use me. I don't care if you ever use my gifts. I don't care if you ever do this. I know He will,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not my main focus where it used to be. I'm anointed, so just use me, Lord. Like,
Right.
He's going to use me because of the gifts He has and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, but I want to be known by God. I want Him to know my name.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want Him to say, "Depart from me, I never knew you."
Mm-hmm.
Not depart from me, I never used you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where it's at for me. How would you say for you, your experience has been? I know ours is probably a little different or
Right.
similar but different. But how is that for you, and where are you at right now?
Ooh. Um. I feel like I was not a PK in the sense of my parents had a church, but I was a PK in the sense of my parents were ministers and pastors and evangelists of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And falling under that category meant we were always at church, always a part of something that was church like, always a part of small groups. So I never knew anything outside of church, thankfully, because I don't know how I could ever stumble upon church if I never knew it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me personally, growing up, I feel like I loved going to church because I loved being with my friends.
Okay.
And I knew like my church friends, those were my friends, and we always had school, and you had your school friends, but your church friends were like the people who saw the real you because back growing up, being a church freak wasn't cool. It wasn't popular. It wasn't modern like it is today. And I feel like I could be the social butterfly, but at church I could just be the worshiper. I could just, you know, talk about God in a way that I couldn't talk before. And I guess because at home, my mom was so on fire for God. She really just poured a lot in us, but it wasn't like something we all got to take for ourselves and really be like, okay, what is this? So I think growing up, our my idea of church was going to church, hoping and praying it was almost over because it go long, you know. We were in non-denominational, but I swear I feel like Pentecostal,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some Sundays where God really moved and we just worshiped the whole Sunday. And it was like, wow, God, thank you, because I didn't have to sit through the word, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I would feel like, but I missed it. But for some reason, I never went home and was able to deep dive myself. And so I felt like I only got church or got to meet with God on Sunday. And I was used to that. I used to go home and try to read, but I would fall asleep. I would get
Mm-hmm.
tired. I always tried to be like, I'm going to start at Genesis. And when it got to everybody and Misha and back, I mean, everybody, it's just
The genealogies.
genealogy, the tree of life, like everybody and their uncle, their daddy. And, you know, I just could not for the life of me focus or pay attention. And then I would try to skip around, and then I feel like, you know what, I just can't do this because I can't even sit through it. So I think without realizing, I told myself that I wasn't a good enough Christian because it was boring.
Mm.
And I think in that I subdued because I had a mom who was on fire and a father who loved to be a minister, but I just didn't have the love of God like they had it. And so I was just like, okay, whatever, I'm a child. But how it's different for me now is I was a child and I didn't understand. And I wish I would have had more, let's get to know this for you, instead of let's just go here because this is what we do.
Yeah.
And now, I stopped going to church because we have 4 kids
Mm-hmm.
and they're back to back. They're young, 7, 5, 4, and 2. But because my husband is a musician and he plays music and he's on staff, it always felt like I was in this by myself. We're not near family. And I understand the sacrifice that we're called to. But in this season, or in that season, it felt almost unbearable to get out of bed, to get 4 kids ready, to come to church, to find us a spot, to walk in, to drop them. It felt a lot. But I do remember one day where I was like, my family came over and we were like, okay, we're going to church. And the kids were like, I don't want to go to church. I said, oh, here we go. And God literally spoke to me one day and was like, you need to go. And I remembered what you used to say is, if you make it optional, one day it's not going to be
What's optional for us
is
is unnecessary for them.
unnecessary. See, there
Yeah.
you go. Because you say it so much, I don't have to. But it struck me because I was like, wow, I'm used to this, but they're not used to it. So they're not going to understand that this isn't just something we do, it's who we are.
Yeah.
And it's like I put my big girl panties on, put my breeches, and I was just like, we gotta go. Not because my circumstance changed, but my heart changed.
Mm.
And I'm not going to say, hey, look at me, and it's a checklist and it's something being checked off. I'm going because I know that this is a greater sacrifice for me. But if it's for my kids' souls, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them to grow up and struggle in the same way I did, whereas they're just kids, they're not going to understand, they'll understand it in their way. I want them to understand it in the way that we live our life and the way that we're called to live. And I feel like at the end of the day, the main difference is because I have a relationship with God instead of an idea of God.
Right. Wow, that's powerful. And I just want to say, like, thank you for that sacrifice. There are probably people watching who go through the same thing, and it is hard when you have a husband. Something, it may not be working at ministry, but maybe that he works on Sundays, or maybe she works on Sundays, or whatever, and you find yourself in this thing where you're trying to make it work.
Right.
And I think that's so powerful and so commendable to take that stance of saying, hey, like, and one thing you've always said that always struck me is like you have such a big emphasis on what we're doing right now and how much it matters for them.
Mm-hmm.
And you always say, you heard that quote, our parenthood is their childhood.
Correct.
And ever since you said that, it kind of struck me. So I'm just appreciative of you, of having that mentality to say, man, like, even if it's hard for me, I'm going to do this because I know, one, we should train a child up in the way that they should go so that when they get old, they won't depart. And two, like I think there's so much benefit, not just for them, that you've gotten out of being back in church now.
Mm-hmm.
And we sit on the front row, and I know that was like a big thing.
Oh, I hated it.
That was like a huge thing. Like,
Remember I used to come and I used to be like 5, 10
yeah,
rows back, and they'd be like,
was
where's
the
his
balcony.
wife?
She's like, get out, let me get away, And so for you to come and do that and sit with me, because one of my biggest problems was we were forced to be in church, but I didn't have a super strong children's ministry. So if you hear like my parents talk about church, or my grandparents, they're like, Trey always had toys and he always had
Mm-hmm.
something, because when I was a kid, I was in service,
Mm-hmm.
and they they needed me to be quiet because we only had pews. We didn't have seats
Yeah.
like it is now. So I would be under the pews, probably like Luca,
Mm-hmm.
crawling underneath and snaking around. Like when I saw him
Mm-hmm.
do that the other day, I'm just like, man, that was me. But that's why the toys were so important, because we didn't have always a children's ministry, or the children's ministry was like super young, and I'm,
Mm-hmm.
what is a 10-year-old going to do?
Right.
So, or a seven or a six, whatever. And it's just like, I appreciate that too, because one of my biggest things was being able to go to church with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you always watched online and you would always catch the service and we talk
Mm-hmm.
about it after, but it's just different having you in the room with me,
Right.
worshiping together is a different experience. And then knowing that our kids are actually getting their version of it, right?
Right.
Because I think a lot of the times for us, like you say this all the time, of not understanding. I don't know what they're talking about, and I remember so many times in church where I was like, man, I don't know what is being said. I'm just
Right.
here.
Right.
Even like I got saved when I was 7 years old, but like, do I remember the message? Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I just
Mm-hmm.
knew I felt the tug of the Holy Spirit on me at a night service on a Sunday night, and I made that decision, but
Right.
I don't remember a lot of messages. And I remember not being able to really like figure it out, and I would go back home and try to ask questions and do all that stuff. But I love that because of your sacrifice, our kids are actually getting what they need and
Mm-hmm.
fed when they come home. They're so excited. Daddy, look what I did. This is who I learned about in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
This is this. And so, while at the same time we get our experience as well. So,
Correct.
yeah.
And that's the beautiful part about actually doing life as a family and not just thinking about our own personal sacrifices or inconveniences,
Hmm.
right? Because if I was just thinking about myself, it'd be so easy to be like, okay, I'm not going because this is just too much. And I know he wakes up at 5. And then but because we are called to live a selfless life, it's not about me,
Yeah.
but it's about we and
Yeah.
it's about us.
Hmm.
And us is not just me and Trey. Like us is our unit, our family.
Yeah.
And a lot of it and a lot of these sacrifices your kids will see. And we are not just known by our words, but we're known by our fruits. And if my fruit is always selfish and me, and self preservation,
Hmm.
my kids will never know God for themselves because all they saw growing up was a woman who wanted to protect her peace. But walking with God, what I know is you have peace in God, but peace is not around you. And
Mm.
I feel like that's what it is to understand that I have peace in my circumstances and in Him I have peace. Because everything, when you're walking with God, they're going to be, it might be even the kids. Man, I remember one morning I was trying to get the kids ready for church, and I feel like anything that could go wrong was going wrong. And Trey never even knew. I came to church. Everyone looked good. We
Hmm.
showed up. But it was one of those moments where I was like, I'm not coming to church. And I believed that the message was so on par
Mm.
that that's how I knew like the enemy was working. So I wouldn't be there. And I feel like if I was selfish and thought about myself and what I wanted and be in my feelings, then I would have missed the opportunity for God to meet me where I was.
Yeah.
And I believe that our life, we're called to always invite God in our spaces. And through that, I feel like you understand Him better. We're always trying to be like, well, God, hear me out. Understand me, but He already knows us.
Hmm.
We've heard and know the scripture that I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. I knew every hair on your head.
Hmm.
And it's like God has already known us. He doesn't have to do anything more to get to know us. He knows everything we're going to do before we do it, every
Yep.
thought that comes in our head. And it's like sometimes I find myself challenging God, but you know, I was going to do that. But it's also like so beautiful to be known but he wants us to know him.
Yeah.
And so what I was understanding even last week and through a year of Bible study is we're not reading to understand ourselves more. We, yes, we can understand what we're going to go through and walk through because there's nothing new under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But we're learning just how good and just our God is
Yeah.
through every circumstance.
Absolutely.
That's why the Bible says, like, God literally, he points out sinners. The entire Bible is of sinners, right? We are born into sin. We are all sinners. However, God shows and we know these stories because he's using them so we can show he's a redeeming father. And he's already redeemed us by Jesus dying for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that through everything that we do and through every Sunday when I go to church and every sacrifice that I make for my family, I know that I'm not earning God's love because he's already given me. But for me, I feel so much better because I feel like, God, I'm so undeserving. But through this and through sacrifice, I feel like God's love is becoming ever more real to me.
Mm-hmm. I think if I remember correctly, on that Sunday you were having a hard morning. I think that was around the time where those people would say something to you and you were walking in. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so every time I feel like the enemy was using things to steal my joy and still say I shouldn't have it came and all these things. Every single moment, those thoughts filled my mind. It was like an angel almost came on the sidewalk right at the same moment where I was like, it's too much. The kids are just about to run and da da da. A stranger would randomly just sit there and say, your family is so beautiful. The next Sunday, well done, Mama. They look great.
Mm-hmm.
The next Sunday, in different ethnicities, different colors, different people, male and female, they would literally go out of the hurry of let's get to the car and stop and acknowledge me and the kids and say, wow, you have your hands full, but y'all made it. And for me, it felt so comforting because it felt like God knew I was getting upset, getting frustrated. And in those moments, he used those people to calm my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I could redirect my focus and get ready for what was to come, what I was going to church expecting for.
Mm-hmm.
Because God knows we have expecting hearts and we're always trying to get more, right? But sometimes God has to have our full clarity. And I feel like in those moments where I would just feel like the world was crashing down, right? And I'm so dramatic, and my husband knows this, but it was just like having to hold a 40-pound baby or a 30-pound baby or push a stroller, and then the kids are fighting over who can push him. It was just like, I just want to get to the door. If I get to the door, I can get to my husband. But even in that, I feel like the revelation is God just wants to meet us where we are. And if we just say, God, I'll do it, along the way, he'll provide comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the parallel to that is just, well, two things. The first thing is the reset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we battle not against flesh and blood. Like a lot of our battles are mental. A lot of our
Right.
wars are in our head. What are we thinking about? What are we focused on? And sometimes when life gets to be a lot, whether it's just getting your kids to the door to go to church, or it's a diagnosis or anxiety or depression or whatever you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
like I think that was just a reminder. Even for me, what I took away from it is just a reminder to kind of reset and put things in its right place
Right.
and put him in its right place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you keep him, because in those moments we let other things, other voices be louder than his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's beautiful that when you had a moment to reset, that's when a peace came over you. That's
Right.
when you felt joy. That's when you felt all those things. And then two, on the other complete other side of it, like, man, you never know what speaking to somebody can do.
Right.
And I think, like, for me, I'm so grateful for the door greeters, or for the ushers, or for the people in church that like sometimes get put to the side, but
They
man,
lift your spirits.
before you ever hear a sermon, like you can be rejuvenated. You can meet, you can get your cup filled before you ever get to service and worship and all that stuff, just because of how people treat you.
And to that point, they always said hello to the kids. What's up, kid? It's like they got the kids excited. And then they're expecting, and they're like, yeah, I'm so excited. And sometimes they didn't say anything, right? Because, you know, our kids are.
Yeah.
But it was just the thought for me that matters so much. Like, they never overlook anybody.
Yeah.
And their heart, you could see how a person is through their eyes. And there was this one guy, and I love him. I don't even know him. But he's always like, you could tell he was a dad. If this was good and really just made your heart happy, if it just made your soul feel just warm, definitely come back. We're going to be dropping episodes every week. I believe our days are Tuesdays. So every Tuesday we're going to be dropping new episodes, so you can definitely come back, lock in, tune in. And if you really enjoyed this, definitely subscribe and join the fam. Rooted but real. Make sure that you're enjoying having these heartfelt conversations with each other, but also make sure that you're also sharing it with somebody who may need to hear this.
Yeah.
Who may want to get locked in, get plugged in a place where they can really feel heard, seen, validated, and understood.